Hello everyone and welcome to Sinful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to talk Bounty Hunters. What Bounty Hunters is a brand new core battalion. We're going to go through and talk about exactly what this is in just a sec, but this is one of the new core battalions in the new General's Handbook, and it is one of the special battalions we get for playing in Gallant. So, let's talk about this battalion and what makes it special. So, first of all, this battalion can contain 2 to 3 troop type units, and troop units are units that can be any sort of unit really, but they're not a leader, behemoth or artillery battlefield role on their pitched battle profile. Units in this battalion, when attacking with melee attacks against a Galatian veteran unit, have their damage characteristic of their melee weapons increased by 1. Now, it's important to talk about Galatian veterans. This is a new rule that has been brought into the game. Galatian veterans in this particular type of game played in Gallant in this new battle pack, they're battle line units that do not have mounts and have 4 or less wounds. And they get their own benefits, and we'll talk about them in a different video, but for now we're talking about Bounty Hunters. We're going to talk about a battalion specifically designed to kill those particular units. Now, units in this battalion can also themselves be Galatian veterans, though this means they will both be at the benefit of the battalion getting the +1 damage, but they'll also be at risk from other units in this battalion, so if your opponent's also taking the battalion, you'll be at risk of having that unit be able to be +1 damaged as well. To avoid the above, in today's video, we're going to look at units that cannot be Galatian veterans, but are still troop choices for the purposes of the battalion. This means we'll get all the benefits, but none of the negatives. So, we are looking for battle line units that have a wounds characteristic of 5 or more, or are mounted, as units with a mount can never be Galatian veterans. And so, with all of that said, we're going to go through every army in the game. I'm going to talk about one unit I think is a great choice for a bounty hunter battalion in your army. So, with that said, let's get cracking on into it. And so, starting off for death, we have the Flesh Eater Courts. Now, we're going to talk Crypt Horrors. Now, the first thing to talk about is to be careful on what sub-faction you're picking. As mentioned, we want to try and avoid having units that are both veterans and bounty hunters, though, you know, it's not always an issue. With Flesh Eater Courts, it's certainly something harder to do. A lot of their units that make good bounty hunters are certainly also going to be veterans in particular factions or sub-factions of the army as well. And that is the case with Crypt Horrors. Crypt Horrors are battle line in a Hollowmourne army, so you might want to avoid that sub-faction, or if you potentially like that sub-faction, you just need to be careful knowing that these units can also be hit on the counter. They have 4 wounds, and this is why they can be veterans with a 5-up save, though they do have the ability to heal a single wound to each unit of Crypt Horrors every turn, which is nice. You know, a single wound doesn't sound like much, but I've had this, you know, potentially keep units alive. That 1 wound, it will come in clutch one time you're playing with it. Now, the unit can reroll hit rolls for attacks while they're within and wholly within 18 inch of any abhorrent unit, which you do generally see included in most Flesh Eater Courts armies. You know, abhorrent Archregents or abhorrent Ghoul Kings on Terrorgeist, Zombie Dragons, etc. You're going to see abhorrent units. But the big thing here is they have 3 damage to attacks that hit on 4s and wound on 3s. Remembering you are rerolling to hit if you got your abhorrents in the right place. However, if a 6 is rolled to wound, the attack has a damage characteristic of 3 rather than 2. Meaning with that +1 damage from bounty hunters, they can spike up from 2 to 4, which is pretty cool. You know, so 3s and 4s on that damage suddenly with bounty hunters is a lot scarier. I really think this is a solid unit for the Flesh Eater Courts for a bounty hunter. Onto the Nighthaunt, and I want to talk about Hexwraiths. Now, there are plenty of other good options for this, because not everything is battle line. Bladegeist, Revenants, or Dreadscythe Harridans are certainly options, though unlike the Hexwraiths, you have to watch what sub-faction you're putting it in. And that's why I want to talk about Hexwraiths, because I feel this is the universal unit to talk about for Nighthaunt as a bounty hunter unit. They're a cavalry unit, which means they can never be veterans because they're cavalry. They have 2 wounds and a 4-up save, and also you need to remember, thanks to being Nighthaunt, they will have the ethereal rule, meaning they can never take positive or negative modifiers to that 4-up save, so really nice. And a 6-up ward there because they are a death unit as well. Now they have 2 attacks hitting and wounding on 3s with -1 rend and damage 1 from the rider, and another couple of standard horse attacks at 4s and 4s, no rend, damage 1. Remembering though 6s to hit do automatic wounds, which is really cool with the Nighthaunt. So on top of that, you're going to also have the ability to make some double moves, though they'll be unable to charge. I mean, this isn't necessarily a good thing for an R unit we're looking to destroy other units, but it is some utility and some other usefulness for the unit indeed. They also do mortal wounds after the unit charges, and remembering Nighthaunt can retreat and charge army-wide, so you've got the ability to go in and out, and keep doing mortal wounds in addition to the other damage you're able to do on these units. I think they're a really solid unit. They've got fly, they've got a base 12-inch move. They're just going to be a really useful unit, especially if your opponent's trying to hide veterans, like hide little backline units that are capping, their own objectives and doing veteran stuff in the backfield of their table. Hex Wraiths are going to be able to get them, and that's what they're going to be really useful for getting at. Onto the Ossiarch Bonereapers and Necropolis Stalkers. Now, I think there is a definite toss-up between Necropolis Stalkers and either version of the Morghast, whether that be the Morghast Harbingers or Archai. I think there's definitely a question to be had. However, I think Necropolis Stalkers, for me, just do it over their ability to be, I guess, a little bit more universal in how they can perform their roles. They've got more things to them. While the Morghast generally are all punch all the time, I think you can find ways around different problems a lot easier with the Necropolis Stalkers and the abilities they have. Now, they have 4 wounds and a 4+ save. They cannot be battleline in any way. So this means, of course, they're never going to be veterans. Important. Spirit Blades have 5 attacks each, hitting and wounding on 3s with a damage of 1 and -1 rend. When you compare this to Morghast, who have the Spirit Blades as well, Morghast are generally punching out the same amount of attacks, but they do get damage 2 on their Spirit Swords. However, they only have 2 models in your unit, so you're going to be putting out 10 damage in comparison to 15. 5 attacks. Oh, sorry, you're going to be putting out 20 damage, which is 5 more, but you're going to have a less model in the unit. This is where it changes though. So you can put 1 in 3 models to be equipped with a Dread Falchion, which will have 3 attacks, hitting on 4s, wounding on 3s, and rend -2 damage to. However, you can choose a variety of abilities in each combat phase, and this is where I think they just tip it over for me. First of all, you can choose to pick one of these abilities, and you can continue to pick the same ability over and over again. There's no, if you picked it one turn, you can't pick it the turn after. They can have either reroll hit rolls, reroll wound rolls, reroll save rolls, which is nice if you get into a problem they can't solve. Or they can put +1 rend and +1 damage on their attack. When they put +1 damage, these immediately become much better than Morghast. And also the extra rend. So, they'd be putting out -2 rend with damage to attacks on 3s and 3s. Suddenly, that really increases the damage on this unit up. They've also got their own cool command ability where they can reroll run and charge rolls, and the counters that they fly whenever they move in that turn as well. Though they don't get run and charge, which is important to have for that. But I think these guys, for me, just with their ability to sort of change up how they want to deal with their threat, I think they're that little bit better than Morghasts. And lastly, for death, we move on to Soulblight Gravelords. Now, everyone is talking about Blood Knights, and of course, they're always a cavalry unit. And I think they definitely have a good place. However, something I really like as a cool hunter is Vargheists. Now, these are a flying unit. They have 4 wounds and a 5+ save. One thing to watch out for is they can become battleline in a Legion of Night army. However, anything outside of that, they're not having to worry about ever becoming veterans. But, that does give them some different options to play around with. Now, the thing they have is they have 3 attacks each, hitting and wounding on 3s, which is a pretty good stat line, with -1 rend, damage 2. The big thing I like is these guys can spike heavy with a ability every 6 to hit, inflicting 2 hits instead of 1. In unit of 3, you're guaranteed, 1.5 a turn. They can make some interesting things. If these guys spike, they spike with that damage high. Now, this unit can also set up off the table and arrive via reserves anywhere on the board, more than 9 inch away from enemy units, which is also really useful, especially if your opponent's playing with those backfield veterans to do objectives and all of that sort of stuff. For me, these are a really nice universal unit. I think they will work well in a ton. Even in Legion of Night, being one of your bounty hunters, they could be really good. You just need to be careful with how you use them in that. For me, everyone is talking about Blood Knights. I think these guys definitely deserve their time in the sun. They've got a lot going for them with the Bounty Hunter Battalion, I think. And so, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And drop us a comment down below letting us know what you enjoyed about the video. If you'd like to come help support the channel in another way, you can do so either by joining our Patreon or YouTube members, or grabbing some channel merch off our merch store on Teespring, which is on our YouTube store as well. You can also come chat with me and other members of our little community here and our Discord server, which is linked down in the video's description, along with the Patreon and YouTube members links. And as a special shout out to all those Patreons and YouTube members, we'd like to give them all a shout out. So thank you to our Patreons, Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lowell, Outer and Shot First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nilsson, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, Mark Harvey, James Cater, Derek, and Giapi390. And a special thank you to our YouTube members, Greenroost Gaming, Kenton Young, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Locke Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, Wolfric Nick, Broken Chef, Ariana Edwards, Sean Scott, Pink Nico Fire, and Robin Mankiller as well. Lastly, a special thanks to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to everyone who comes on the channel and helps us create everything we do. Thank you all for watching once again, everyone. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.